Let's have a quick conversation with Honorable Moses Kuria, Senior Presidential Advisor in the Council of Economic Advisors. I see a lot of your questions coming through. Keep them coming at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag JKLIVE. We'll pose most of the questions to Waziri. Thank you for making time, Honorable Moses Kuria. So, many people have been wondering, what does the role of a presidential advisor really entail?
The president is only one man. And in all systems, presidential or otherwise, it is, you need a team, to help you to think through things, to help you to analyze. And the president in this case is not actually a president, he's a participant. The kind of discussions that the president has with his team of advisors is like a brainstorm in a typical, private sector environment, or even a university or, some academic institution, so that's one thing. So, even the program that we are now implementing, as Kenya Kwanza government, was made up of, we came up with a program as a result of so many consultations. And you can go back to history, you can go back to 2021, you can go back to 2022. It was like a brainstorm of how to make a new country altogether. Yeah. So for us, it's nothing new. It's something that if you take some of our programs, for example, the healthcare, which we are implementing today, we started that program back in 2020. Okay. I remember one time sitting in the residence of the then deputy president, and we were having a cup of tea with him, discussing the first thing about what to do with the NHIF. Was in the year 2020, just the two of us, So it's what you do typically, that you get people to think through, you get some people to design. It's only now that when you become president, those people are called advisors. But other than that, we are just one team. Okay. We were just a think tank. So
how often do you interact
with the
president?
Well, we interact on need basis, not regular.
So in
now,
a month,
but what happens? What happens, Trevor, is a project has got a life cycle. Okay. You start with the concept, with the vision, with the strategy, then you design. Then after design, then it's calibrated, and you do panel beating, and then implementation. Of course, in the beginning, the meetings are, you meet quite frequently in the design phase when you are trying to see what works. In the beginning of an implementation, they are quite limited. But other than that, we give it to the rightful owners. Okay. And the rightful owners are, the line, or the bureaucracy, the people working within government, because no matter how good a think tank is, it can never implement, You can support the implementation, you can advise on the implementation, but ultimately it's upon people who are bestowed, by the Kenyans to the responsibility to implement that gets to do it.
So where does the gap lie? In the implementation, or are there too many advisors, or are there too many levels? If there's a program that you want to implement?
No, well, first of all, this is a very good question. Most of the people who implement programs were not part of the design. Okay? So it's like I come and tell you, we design a product like this. The thinking was mine. The vision was mine. The how to do was mine. And now you have to come and implement. So I need to spend considerable time with you to tell you, why did we design this program the way we designed it? What did we intend? What are the outcomes? So I first of all have to convince you that you start thinking and behaving in the same way as someone who was there from the beginning. Yeah. And of course, you are not a zombie. You'll come with your own ideas. Well, I've seen what you guys meant, but this is my input in terms of what needs to be done to make it better. And then you let the people own it. Once they own it, once the line people own it, once the CSs own it, once the PSs own it, once people within the entire government system own it, then our work is done.
Isn't that where the problem then is? Because it's like a circumlocution.
You should discuss whether there's a problem. Yes. Which problem is it?
Because you're saying that first the implementers are not the people who conceived.
That's not a problem. That's not a problem. It is normal. It happens in private sector.
Okay.
I mean, I have, for me, I've done this for 3 decades plus. I mean, I've been doing advisory work in private sector for 3 decades, and that's exactly what happens. You know, I spent considerable time, 2 decades within the banking sector, and that's exactly what we do. You design a product, and then after you design the product, you go to the guy who's supposed to implement it. It was not part of the thinking.
Okay.
Then you have to get his buy-in, his understanding, and then you have to spend as much time as it takes for him to see all, you know, until, as we say in that parlance, until the penny drops. Once he gets the penny dropping, then he can be able to run.
But is that where the problem is? Because we've seen you even in public forums speaking about SHA, for example, just the other day. We had you speaking about that. We're wondering, is that part of your mandate, or have you...
It is part of my mandate as an advisor, because first of all, it is part of my mandate to make all the government programs work. It's part of my mandate.
Okay.
If they fail, I have failed. Does not matter for me to come and say it was PS, it was, I don't know, CEO, it was, I don't know, some director somewhere. I cannot come here and claim, the fifth that it was not me, it was somebody else. It is my responsibility to ensure that I make that program work.
Is your advice always implemented?
Of course, it's not all be implemented. Why should it be implemented?
So what's
do I know everything?
It's not being implemented.
You know, I come with say, let's implement this. Somebody says, I think I'll take up 70%. By the way, if my advice is taken 60%, I consider myself extremely successful.
So what is your advice now? Because you've seen the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics data for third quarter of 2024 showing a slump in growth compared to 2023. 2023, the growth was 6%. Now it is 4% in 2024, meaning the economy is heading in the wrong direction. 2024,
and I've interrogated those figures, 2024 was a harsh year. You'll have to agree with me. It was a terrible year. It was a difficult year. It was a year, let's look at the external factors first of all. It was a year we started with the high fuel prices. It's a year we started with the whole issues of Ukraine, the whole problems in the Middle East. It was a year that, if I tell you something, before 2020, let's say 2020, 2021, 2022, the interest rate on government money in the US was below 1%. It was somewhere in the region of 0.5%. Within the Biden years, the interest rate was 5.5%. That is tenfold, a tenfold growth. Now, African economies, if they would even have gone to tenfold, even fivefold, given where our base was, the US base was 0.5, went up to 5.5. So this is a year where not just Kenya, but the entire Africa took a lot of bashing because of the overheating, I'll call it overheating of the American economy. So the global dynamics fueled by, by the interest rate, especially in the United States, going all the way to 5.5. I mean, it's madness. US dollar, government paper, 5.5, up from 0.5%. So all the monies that were here, people who had invested here, rationally, what would you do? Not just Kenya, but also all the other parts of Africa and the developing world did it. You take the money to the 5.5. 5.5 on US government paper, which money will ever come here? And so therefore we took a beating. Yeah. We took a beating in 2024 as a result of the dollar, you remember? It was a year of 2024 was not a good year by all means.
Okay, so
and we can't even present.
All factors
all factors
advice going forward.
And let me just say here, it was also the year we were coming from extreme drought, the most severe drought the country has had in 40 years. Yeah. It was a year then now that we saw the upheavals that came with the political tensions and all that, the Gen Z rising, whatever. So I cannot sit here and pretend that 2024 was a good year.
Okay.
It was not a good day in the
Fair
office.
point.
It was
all
a bad day in the office.
Constant. Global economic shocks, bad situation here. What is your advice as the economic advisor?
No, now, that's a very good question again, Trevor. I think most of my advice has been consumed. Because if you look at the fundamentals, what we have done, despite all that, two things happened for this country. Two things. One, we did not default. Other economies of our standing would have defaulted on, especially our external debt. There were fears we would default on our external debt. There were fears we would default on our domestic debt. We did not default. Am I expecting anybody to give us flowers because we did not default? It's not something you get flowers for, unfortunately. It's a thankless job. But it's a thankless job, and we don't get flowers for that. But imagine the converse. Imagine if we defaulted, the kind of stake that we'll be getting right now. It's atrocious. That's number one. Two, as I've said, we came from extreme drought to very good rains. The bulk of 2024, 2023, end of 2024 especially, God has been very good for us. So two things came our way. One, we did not default because of very good policies of stabilizing. Then from there, we did things in 2024 which you don't expect again for us to get flowers for. All the macroeconomic stabilization issues on inflation, on the currency coming from 160 to 120, on the budget deficit coming down, dramatically, So in terms of stabilizing the patient.
Yeah.
So we found a patient there who was almost dying, and we stabilized them. By the way, if a doctor stabilizes a patient, people, not many people even recognize that.
Okay.
Yeah? Because the patient is not going out for a game of rugby or golf. All we did was stabilizing. Okay. So I would say that now from here where we are, we cannot, I think the phase of stabilizing the patient is gone. Okay. And this phase is very difficult phase, Trevor, because it's not visible to the common man. The common man will not understand that we were just about to default. The common man will not understand where inflation was. The common man who does not export, for example, will not know that the dollar was 160, came to 120.
The common man only understands that his life is harder now.
Absolutely now, yeah. Absolutely now, So we are that guy who have to absolutely to take the body blows, which now takes me to where we are going now. Now it's about one thing: macroeconomic stability. The microeconomy is a key word. 2025, and I would say 2026 is about the microeconomy. That the only road we need to build, the only highway we need to build is the one that goes to people's pockets. That's the biggest challenge. That's what myself personally...
For example, should we cut down on the taxes? What are the practical examples?
Let's look at it this way.
How do you get money to...
Let's look at it this way.
Yeah.
We are paying today, interest. I'm not talking about principal. On domestic debt, bonds, treasury bonds and treasury bills, we are paying 750 billion shillings. On people here, tu wanaume tu hapa na wanawake hapa, people who buy bonds and bills there, most of them banks, for example. 750 billion divided by 365 days, 2 billion a day on interest. See, on principle, today.
So what should be done for that?
Yeah. So what we need to do... Yeah, what I'm trying to do to tell you is not what needs to be done on that one. It's just to explain to you why things like cutting taxes now do not make sense.
So how do you get the money to the people's pocket?
Now, what we need to do is to really come up with measures on stimulus. The whole thing is about stimulus. And what you're going to find in 2025, and especially 2025, 2026 is a year of harvesting the benefit. But 2025, we are going to have policies mostly centered around economic stimulus. Yeah, from wherever, and I'm going to, maybe, as we go on with the show, I'll be able to show where the money is going to come from. We're not going to borrow more. Yeah, we're not going to raise more taxes than we have in terms of, how much we hit into the people's. On the worst case scenario, we maintain, equilibrium on the taxes to the people. I'm going to want to talk about taxation there.
Right.
But I want to demonstrate to you how we are going to have an economic stimulus program that puts money into people's pockets, that again spurs growth again, that we start growing again. Now that we have fixed the fundamentals, without increasing taxes and without borrowing.
We'd like to hear that right after this conversation, and we'll come to that in just a bit so that we know how do we pump in. Where do you operate from, by the way? Where do advisors sit? Do you have an office, a location?
PO Box State House in Nairobi.
You all sit at State House?
Yes.
All right. All right, we'll continue the discussion with the Honorable Moses Kuria, Senior Presidential Advisor in the Council of Economic